Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. Politicians are reacting differently following the convening of electors across the national territory for the 7th of October 2018. To some opposition political leaders in the country, it is not timely, as we are going to be hearing in the second part of this newscast. The Communication Minister Issa Shiroma Bakari is going to be reacting following the convening of the Electoral College in the country. That's going to be in this newscast. Also ahead, the Minister of Transport sanctions travel agencies following the July 6th ghastly road accident which occurred along the Buda-Yaoundé highway. 7 of them have so far been suspended. We tell you about the ministerial decision in this newscast. The Presbyterian Church in Linde, southwest region of the country, for the first time assists displaced victims of the Anglophone crisis. We tell you more in just a moment. Stay with us. This is the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television, and we thank you so much for joining us. The electoral calendar for the year 2018 has finally been unveiled. Electors are going to be going to the polls on the 7th of October 2018. It follows the presidential decree that was made public yesterday by the President of the Republic of Cameroon. So far, the electors in the country would be taking part in the election, or the election day actually is the 7th of October 2018. And on the 19th of July, it's going to be the deadline for the various aspirants, where be it candidates or the political parties, to take part in the 2018 presidential elections in the country, to deposit their various candidatures on the 24th of September. That's going to be the start of campaigns across the national territory. And an electoral expert has expressed President Paul Biya's respect of the electoral laws in the country by convening the presidential election at the expected moment. Those were his words. He, however, doubts the credibility of the 2018 presidential elections in the country, which is coming at the time when the nation is facing socio-political crisis. Innocent Aze tells us more in this report.
The Electoral College was convened July 9 on grounds of the 2018 presidential election, October 7. An expert on electoral matters, Dr. Hilaire Kamga, knows that no matter the state of the nation shaped by the Anglophone crisis, the applicable laws have been respected. He hails President Biya's respect of the law, but doubts the quality of the election.
Il a respecté la loi. Maintenant, sur la qualité des élections qui vont se tenir, tout le débat va se poser à ce niveau.
Potential candidates have barely few days to compile and deposit their candidacy. Elekam will on his part have 20 days to publish the clear list of candidates to run for the presidential election.
À partir de maintenant, il y a une dizaine de jours.
Dr. Hilaire Kamga says on July 20, all presidential candidates will be made known officially and registered for the election. After Elekam, the Constitutional Council will come in to treat pre-electoral questions.
Le contentieux préélectoral va nécessairement s'ouvrir.
This, Hilaire Kamga says, will be after July 20.
Et sur éventuellement des recours des candidatures rejetées par l'élection de Cameroun.
September 24, 2018 has been set as official date for the commencement of electoral campaigns by different political parties involved. But the experts in election matters note that before this date, political debates on the media, unlike large public gatherings of political parties, will not be prohibited, such that candidates express themselves on the future election.
Il n'y a aucune disposition légale qui demande à l'organe de gestion des élections.
He says there is absolutely no law stopping media organizations from creating debate forums for political parties. He supports by saying a political party is created to market itself, to communicate and advance its propaganda.
Le parti politique est créé pour se vendre. donc pour communiquer, pour faire sa propagande. On n'attend pas la période de campagne pour pouvoir le faire.
It is not only during campaign period that this is done. Also, Hilaire Kamga knows that a propaganda on a precise election and on a presidential aspirant must not be done before the start of a campaign period.
Et sur les candidatures ne doit pas être faite avant le début de la période de campagne électorale.
By the time of the official opening of the electoral campaign, every political party's chart and effigy of its presidential candidates have to be regulated. Those who violate this by going beyond the dimension required and pasting their posters in areas not designed for the exercise have to be punished.
Qui met ses affiches dans des endroits non programmés pour cela devrait être puni.
The convening of the Electoral College July 9 automatically puts an end to registration on the electoral list.
Du point de vue des électeurs, il va de soi qu'à partir de ce jour, il n'y a plus d'inscription sur les listes électorales.
The convocation of the Electoral College indicates the race to the presidency has just begun. The election shall hold on Sunday, October 7, 2018. Polls shall open at 8 a.m. and close at 6 p.m.
Anissa Shiruma Bakari is not the only. The Minister of Communication in Cameroon, or government spokesperson, is the president of the National Salvation Front in the country, reacting after the electorates were convened by the President of the Republic of Cameroon. Issa Shiruma Bakari said that the move is timely. Let's hear him in the following excerpt. He was speaking to Marcel Nganso.
Well, I'm very much delighted for having this opportunity. As always, I said, the party that I am presiding over the destiny has already made up its mind as to continue to give unwavering, unshakable support to President Biya in this particular moment, because as you know, we are undergoing a very turbulent moment. President Biya has shown his ability, his capacity to be at the helm, happen what may, to lead us through turbulent moment and to get out of it without significant damage. We are very much pleased, delighted that people, our nation is summoned. The people will decide as who will preside over its destiny during the election, which will take place the 7th of October. We wish these elections to be organized in a free, fair manner, equal opportunity given to all competitors. There are many. This announce the vitality and the vigor of our democracy, which is something marvelous. The elections is to take place in a very crucial moment, turbulent moment, in the far north as well as in the two regions of our nation. We are going through very turbulent moment. We wish this election to take place in a fair manner. So, in my capacity as the chairman of my party, I will summon the political bureau to support, to endorse all the statements that I am making today. I have announced many political rally, very huge political rally with very huge turnout in Gider, in Garwa, in Marwa, and likely in Douala during the campaign which will take place the days ahead. Thank you.
And as we said in the start of this newscast, heads have started rolling following the ghastly road accident along the Buda-Yaoundé highway, which claimed the lives of 31 persons. The Minister of Transport, in a communique today, has suspended what he described as 6 recalcitrant travel agencies and said that they would only resume activities after their situation is regularized. They are Charité Voyage, Elegance du Nun, Alliance Travel Agency, Super Grand Mille Plus Voyage, Faco Travelers, and the Butrans Travel Agency, the minister has also suspended for the period of 2 months a license of the proprietor of the Takala agency which was involved in the said Gasley Road accident, and for 3 months the center which issued a roadworthiness certificate to the said agency. 31 people died, it should be noted, in the accident which took place in Dikenimeki, 4 receiving treatment in hospital as we speak. It has been described as the deadliest accident in Cameroon since the start of this year 2018. The Social Democratic Front has blamed the extreme bad state of the road, extended its condolences to the affected families, while the communication minister equally sent words of sympathy to the bereaved and affected families on behalf of the President of the Republic. In courage to travel to Bello, Boyo division of the Northwest region of Cameroon, as roads are simply been barricaded and dozens of others deserted. Those are homes that have simply been deserted by local inhabitants. Many residents in Bello are now seeking refuge in unknown areas after their houses were set ablaze several days ago. The residents of Nkwipol, that is the Constitutional Council member, has been reduced to ashes. Even vehicles and motorbikes were set ablaze. It is against this backdrop that the SDF chair, Nijan Fundi, visited Bello, where he took stock of the situation. The chairman of the principal opposition political party in Cameroon equally visited the St. Martin de Porres Hospital in Ginicom, which is home to some internally displaced persons. The turnout of patients has dropped and supply of hospital equipment interrupted due to constant unrest. Nijan Fundi equally condemned burning of houses and called on the government to seek lasting solutions to the crisis. Let's hear him in the following excerpt. Let's now have an excerpt of the chairman of the principal opposition political party in Cameroon. Nijan Fundi was speaking to Mbu Stella.
I was not very comfortable with what I saw, especially the whole fleet of vehicles we saw by the roadside burnt. And now with all these destructions, the Amazonian boys accuse the armed forces accuse them. But if these two people are exchanging accusations on each other, I accuse Mr. Biya because he's the architect of all this.
Nijan Fundi there speaking to Mbu Stella. Now, Buea is relatively calm today compared to the chaotic atmosphere Monday, which left residents indoors. Derija to tour the streets of Buea this Tuesday to capture the atmosphere and the impact of yesterday's unrest. His report.
The members of the Southwest Regional Selection Committee of the National Civic Service Agency for Participation in Development are here at the Southwest Governor's Office to scrutinize and validate the list of candidates for the 2018 program.
It is an annual program where the Regional Selection Committee, which is being chaired by the Governor of the Southwest Region, convokes members for the regional selection so that these young people, that is conscripts between the ages of 17 to 21 years, could be trained in moral rearmament, civic education, national integration, and other modules which are very, very important, environmental protection, and also for volunteers which are being trained in the pilot villages.
Taking place on the heels of increasing tension in the region, Mr. Eno Daniel Agbo, the agency Southwest Regional Coordinator, says the Anglophone crisis has hindered some divisions from sending in its participants. At the end of the deliberations, the list was validated and the participants will be expected soonest at their training centers.
Effectively, we are supposed to start on the 25th for the conscripts of this month, which is July, and we'll run for 1 month. For the volunteer program, it starts on the 1st of August, this 2018, and it will run for 6 months as usual. And I think the closing ceremony or the end of the training will be by the 31st of January 2019.
In all, 140 conscripts and 50 volunteers will be participating in this 2018 edition of the National Civic Service Agency for Participation in Development Program in the Southwest region.
That was instead Derek Jato reporting about the Southwest region that is now intensifying the training of capacity builders. According to that report, he indicated why not all the divisions making up the Southwest region of the country are involved or represented as far as the selection is concerned. Now, we come back to this report on Buea, which is relatively calm to the compared to the chaotic atmosphere Monday, which left residents indoors. Derek Jato toured the streets of Buea today to capture the atmosphere and the impact of yesterday's unrest.
Buea welcomes back its clear sky after the Monday shutdown. Life is resuming on the streets and at various job sites, but the memories of the shooting, the killings, and the burning of properties is not only living with the people of Buea, as most of them are relocating out of town, but what the Monday, July 9th left behind will also be reminding even new faces entering the town of Buea of a dark day that Buea once registered on a particular Monday, July 9, 2018. We are at mile 17 bus station, and this is what is left of 6 30-seater buses belonging to an interurban transport agency plying the Buea, Kumba, Douala, Yaoundé and Baminda route. The buses have been burnt beyond recognition, and as the Southwest people are praying for time to heal their wounds and for the power that be to speed the process for a lasting solution of this Anglophone crisis, fear is steadily winning in the city. For instance, most business centers in Buea this Tuesday, July 10, only opened its doors after midday for fear of the unknown because of gunshots that were heard at mile 16 in the morning.
And for the first time in Limbe, the church reaches out to families displaced by the socio-political crisis in the northwest and the southwest regions of Cameroon. The Presbyterian Church Maitu distributed foodstuff and other items to the affected population and preached the message of hope. Davis Maimo tells us more in this report.
Only shooting is like as I sleep on that vehicle. Prayer to give that praise to God, no, then I will get. So that at 9 o'clock, the big space.
We don't give to an extent where the beginning, we don't start shift, we see the fear we play for them. So if it affect them.
Their stories are pathetic and soul-touching, as Reverend Fokabo Divine and the entire Presbyterian Church Maitu family need not to think twice in extending a hand of love to the internally displaced persons. From the old, the young, women and children, the PCC Maitu family, from fresh foodstuff, dresses, shoes, bags of rice, to a special church offering made with the money meant to cater for the hospital bills of some of the internally displaced persons undergoing treatment, all was realized.
The goal of the Christians of PCC Maitu coming out with support for the displaced persons is to solidarize them in this crisis situation, to make them as fellow believers created in the image and likeness of God, to know that their pain is not only their pain, but it is a pain that all of us we feel it and we share in it.
In his message, the man of God assured the internally displaced persons and the Christians of PCC Maitu that God is still on his throne.
When we faced with crisis, we lost focus and where to go to. But I tell you, in the midst of this, there are those who still believe in God, and I tell you, our God is still a living God and is still on the throne. He will not abandon you.
We also want to make them know that they are not refugees. They are still in their land. They are in their country. We are one another's keeper. And so we extend the arm of love of Christ to these displaced persons. And we give them hope to know that all is not lost. And I call on Cameroonians to stay focused and seek God. The Lord tells us in his holy book that when my people gather in my house and call on his name, I will heal their land. So let Cameroonians be focused and let us seek God, and God will intervene. He has not abandoned us. He does not hate us. He is doing something for our own good, and we know it shall come to pass.
The PCC Maitu is the first denomination and first official group to extend a helping hand to the 100 of internally displaced persons in Limbe.
And corruption has eaten deep into the public service across the national territory, despite the putting in place of several corruption-fighting mechanisms and institutions by the government of Cameroon. Money must exchange hands, it should be noted, before services are rendered, especially in public service in several parts of the country. Franklin Moabe spoke with some users of public service who expressed their frustrations and views in the following report.
The National Anti-Corruption Commission, CONAC, established by presidential decree in March 11, 2006, was to monitor and evaluate the effective implementation of the government's anti-corruption program. The commission is in charge of checking and bringing to justice corrupt practices in the country. But despite its presence, many government and private offices are still involved in corrupt practices like the collection of bribe as conditions to gain employment in some public offices.
Ça défavorise un peu certains qui veulent passer par le droit chemin parce que c'est eux là qui sont pénalisés à la fin.
To these public service users, it is a regular happening to pay for the exchange of service in some offices if you want your documents attended with urgency.
C'est l'argent qui est en jeu, c'est un peu déplorable.
To these students, most times the people in charge of certifying or signing a document keeps a middleman who collects money on their behalf, which are practices CONAC has to fight hard to prevent.
De subsistance des stratégies d'adaptation pour contourner la stratégie de la CONAC mise sur le terrain.
This act of bribery and corruption constantly keeps the gap between the poor and the rich further apart.
Je remercie les services, c'est très important.
I appreciate the work CONAC is doing, but much still needs to be done. In reality, CONAC exists, but at this level, a lot still needs to be done to make it rigorous and serious.
Il y a encore beaucoup de travail à faire pour que ce soit véritablement rigoureux et sérieux.
The National Anti-Corruption Commission has the capacity to investigate, gather, analyze allegations and information about corrupt practices within the country. The findings of a CONAC inquiry can lead to disciplinary and legal proceedings, but the government is still to take court actions against some corrupt institutions and personalities cited by CONAC.
And we talk about the ordeals of porters at Marché Sandaga here in the country's economic capital, Douala. They are facing tough times on daily basis because of many holiday makers who are competing with them. A reporter, Fomi Sanda, visited the Sandaga market here in the city of Douala and compiled this report.
Carrying bags of huckleberry, carrot, basket of tomatoes and other vegetables is the tedious daily job of porters in Marché Sandaga, one of the largest food markets in Central African sub-region. They are complaining of difficult times due to the influx of holiday makers into that activity. There are many holiday makers working as porters, and we no longer work as we used to do. Initially, you could make 7,000 to 8,000 francs CFA working from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. But now, to make 1,500 francs CFA is not easy. With loads 8 in their hands, ready to carry just anything available, these porters move from one corner of the market to another, an activity which goes with numerous challenges. Under the rain, under the sun, with bags on the head or back, we go to anywhere. Sometimes you carry somebody's goods and deposit, but before the person could come, it is stolen. You are obliged to pay. This activity requires a lot of endurance and a considerable physical energy. Porters complain of frequent health complications linked to their activity, like headache, backache and ear problems. Well said that work spares you from vice, help provide your needs and keep you busy. Porters in Marché Sandaga Douala say their activity takes almost equal what they gain from it.
And that is that for this first part of the news. In just few seconds from now, we are going to be receiving Smart Njikan Gabriel on our sports package. Good evening to you once again, ladies and gentlemen. Smart Njikan Gabriel, nice to have you once more.
It's my pleasure, Mimi.
A pleasure as well. Now, we are having the semi-final matches that are due to begin today. France that will be facing Belgium in just few minutes from now. That's going to be at exactly 7 p.m. But we are going to be taking a look or previewing the encounter, the number of goals scored by the France's forward line, the top players of France and Belgium, as well as the possible starting 11s, Manjik and Gabriel.
Yes, as we already seen on our screen, it's going to be a tough game at the St. Petersburg Stadium that is out there in Russia. France versus Belgium. But what do you know about France top players? We shall be telling you that between France and Belgium, they have some top players, or the forward of France this far, they have scored a total number of 5 goals. Maybe you want to understand that France have scored more goals during the knockout phase than during the group matches, because during the knockout phase, France have scored at least 5 goals, and during the knockout, during the normal phase of the competition, France was not able to score as many as 5, but the knockout stages, they scored 5 goals, and they scored less goals during the start of the competition, that is the group stages. Now, talking about head-to-head confrontation between France and Belgium, it should be noted that it is a match, it is the 74th time that France will be meeting, France and Belgium will be meeting, and if we look at all internationals combined, France have won 24 and Belgium 30 of them, and they have drawn 19 of the matches. That is, if we have to join all of the games. And to know that the last time these two sides met at the competition was way back, and of course it was France that had a victory over Belgium. But the last time they had a good match, France came from 4 goals down to defeat their opponents. Now, the possible starting 11 for France this evening, according to what we have on our pictures, the possible starting 11. Maybe Dam will help us to give us that, for us to have the starting 11 of France this evening. It is the dressing room we are seeing. Let's go to the possible starting 11 for France this evening to know that France has maintained, or the head coach Didier Deschamps has maintained its trust on the same team that actually defeated their opponent, that is the Argentine, during the group stage. We have Giroud, Matuidi, Griezmann, Mbappé, Pogba, Kante, Hernandez, Umtiti, Varane, Pavard and Lloris, who might be the possible starting 11. And in that possible starting 11, we have 2 supposed Cameroon players, Umtiti and Kylian Mbappé, who are supposed to be part of the Indomitable Lions squad. Unfortunately, they are playing for France. So that is it for the possible starting 11 for France this evening. That is in some few minutes time from now.
And apart from the clash between two countries, it's equally a clash of club mates. You are going to be telling us which league is equally highly represented in the competition.
Yes, as you rightly put it, Mimi, we have club mates that will be clashing this evening. At the level of France or Manchester United, these are the 2 guys. We have Pogba and Romelu Lukaku. Chelsea, Kante and Eden Hazard. Unfortunately, both they play for the opposite sides. Pogba and Kante for France, and Lukaku and Hazard, they play for you have Belgium. And talking about the club or country that is being represented at this time in terms of club level, England, the English Premier League, they top the league with the total number of players who are still left at the competition out there. The English Premier League has a total number of 40 players still left in the competition. And of course, we have the French league that comes behind, and the Bundesliga and La Liga. Maybe Ndam will show us that World Cup record. That is it. The English Premier League 40, and of course we have La Liga with 12, same like the French Premier League with 12, Bundesliga 9, and the least side is the Serie A in Italy that has just 8 players left in the competition.
We equally have the most goals at the World Cup this far and the most semi-finalists.
Yes, and we decided to go into this because so many people have been asking question, how many goals have they scored? Just to know that 9 different scorers have scored for Belgium this far at the World Cup. But at the level of the semi-finals, I want to tell you that only Germany with 12, Brazil with 8, and of course Italy with 7 have reached 9 more FIFA semi-finals than any other. France, they are just having 6, but to know that the Benjamins of the semi-finalists is England, and of course Croatia. They will be meeting tomorrow. Coincidentally, they have qualified for the semi-finals just maybe we have Belgium and Croatia just twice, and England have done that on 3 different occasions. So this is the situation between the semi-finalists. And talking about the most goals that have been scored this far at the competition, to note that at the level of goals, we have a total number of, say, some 2.5 goals or 2.5 average per goal. That is a 2.5 goals scored per average of the World Cup competition that is ongoing, and most of them have been scored through penalty, and the penalties, 10 of them, thanks to video assistant.
What is the atmosphere? What are the fans saying? The fans on the side of France and Belgium.
It is total jubilation. Total jubilation. Everyone wants to see what is happening in the pitch. Remember, the fans are like this 12th player on the pitch. So it is a noise that they play that galvanizes the player.
And this day is equally historic.
It is historic. And then maybe we'll have the last picture on the day to know that on this day in history, in Berlin, the Azuris of Italy won the World Cup in Berlin. That was in 2010. Good. That is the Azuris of Italy who won that competition. It is a historic day as Italy won that tournament in Berlin in Germany. So we are waiting. Maybe tomorrow we'll come back to tell people what happened between Germany, Belgium and France.
Thank you so much, Smart Njikan Gabriel. To our televiewers, in just few seconds from now, we are going to be looking at the legal implications of the convening of electors in the country. The elections in Cameroon would to be taking place on the 7th of October 2018. The announcement was made yesterday in a presidential decree. Our guest tonight is a legal advisor of the Social Democratic Front Party. We shall be right back. Good evening to you once again, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you so much for joining us in this second segment of the news. As I said earlier, we are going to be receiving tonight Barrister Atanga Mbole. Good evening to you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
Good evening, Mimi, and good evening to our televiewers.
You are legal advisor of the Social Democratic Front Party. I suppose that there should be preparations at the level of the Social Democratic Front Party that is also taking part in the presidential election.
Sure. We've been preparing for the elections for a couple of months, especially after our February convention, where we had an extraordinary convention to designate the flag bearer of the SDF in the person of Honorable Joshua Ossi. So since then, we've been preparing, especially as we know that we don't master the electoral calendar. It is mastered by one man who, in most cases, is a candidate and is likely going to be a candidate. So he alone knows the exact date on which elections would hold. We are still far from a situation where every other candidate or interested contester would know the exact date, like the situation in the US, where everybody knows that during the election year it will be a second Tuesday of the month of November. So even children in primary school already know.
But now
we're still far from that.
The election date in Cameroon is known, and on the 7th of October, electors are going to be going to the polls to elect a new president in the country. From a legal standpoint, how timely is this convening?
Well, it has respected the time. Normally we're expecting this before the 16th of this month. So it has been done, and we'll definitely have the elections 90 days at least, as the law says. That one is fine. There is no argument on that. But what we keep regretting and hoping for is that the electoral calendar should be made known to everybody, because I don't think it's only on yesterday that the head of state knew that he was going to convene this election. So probably he knew months and maybe years before. And that is a technical advantage to him alone, not to all the other contestants.
That is what opposition party leaders have always talked about, the hijacking of the electoral calendar. What could be the implication to opposition parties?
Not only to opposition parties, but to the whole nation. As we talk now, as we speak now, we don't know what is the outcome of municipal councillors. In a country where we seem to be, or we claim to be promoting decentralization, municipal councillors, their mandate has come to an end, and it is not yet postponed. Nothing is said about it. So it is a kind of high-handedness that we condemn, and we think that we can do a lot to make it better. It's just the will. We just have the bad faith. We don't want to do it. So we pray and we hope that we'll get the country one day at a level where all this will be transparent and everybody will come to know it.
And to be a presidential candidate, there is this debate on the question of 30 million francs CFA to be deposited at the National Treasury in the country. What do you have to say about that? Are you okay with that amount?
You know, a caution has to be deposited as per the electoral code by the candidate. I think, first of all, to limit the number of candidates, to make it serious. If not, everybody would flock to it, and it will lose its credibility. And then secondly, by the time you go and stake 30 million francs, you know you can lose it, because if you don't score 10%, you lose the caution. So I think it's a good thing, but the amount is very high too. It's on the high side. So lawmakers, the majority of them being the CPDM, decided that. You know, they even decided for 3 million for parliamentarians and later on brought it back to 1 million. So these are issues which were debated in Parliament, and the overwhelming and obese majority carried the day. That's why it is law today.
And of course, it should have, if you're saying that the amount has to be reviewed, what are you suggesting?
Well, I cannot suggest an amount. That is not even the debate now. I think the debate is that elections have been called, and it is already law that any interested candidate must deposit 30 million francs at the public treasury. I think debating on the amount should come after. That can come under an amendment to the law, but not now. So sure. I don't want to dwell on it.
Now, the Social Democratic Front, like you said, has a flag bearer as far as the presidential election is concerned. The name of Honorable Joshua Osei, who was recently, whose nationality was being put to question recently. What does the law actually say about nationality and being a presidential candidate in Cameroon as a legal mind?
This is a distraction about the nationality of Honorable Joshua Osei. This is somebody who has been a municipal councillor in this country, who is a parliamentarian. So it's just a distraction if an issue comes up on his nationality. The law is clear that you must be born a Cameroonian. And I think there is no debate on that.
There is no debate on that?
Yes, he's a Cameroonian. So, there's no debate on that.
And your take on the fact that up to now it is not known whether the President of the Republic is going to be a presidential candidate?
Well, in his party, he is the natural candidate. In the CPDM, the national chairman is a national candidate.
But
the
we're
natural
not certain
candidate.
whether he's going to...
Well, it is left to them. They keep calling on him. I always wonder why they call on somebody who is already ordained to be a candidate to stand. So he has 10 days, or 9 reduced because today has been taken off. From yesterday to the 19th, every person has to declare his candidature. I will wonder if he will not be. So
are you, in other words, saying that he should copy the SCF example?
Well, that is their internal cuisine. I don't know whether within 10 days the CPDM can hold a congress or a convention and designate a new party chairperson, because unless they will change their statute, but I don't see them doing that within these 9 days. So definitely he is going to stand.
And the election coming at the time when there are other opposition party leaders and actors of the civil society saying that the atmosphere in the country doesn't warrant an election to be conducted, and that is not going to be free and fair. According to Akerimuna, he actually thinks that the election can take place, can take Cameroon out of the current socio-political crisis. What do you think about that?
I buy that view, and before I come to that, it's regrettable that we are going into elections with a country rocked with crisis in the north, in the northwest and southwest regions, in the east, and all over with threats in the littoral and other regions of the west, for example. You see, we are in a country where we refuse to do first things. We always put the cart before the horse. These crises were foreseeable, and we could act to preempt these crises. We refuse to act, especially the regime in place, because there are those governing this country. Now they want to force an election onto such a situation, which is a further risk, because in the event where, because we know how they maneuver to win, if the event where they attempt, the whole country can go into flames. It's very, very regrettable. So we can only pray for Cameroonians to be mature and not to follow or lend any support to anything that would destabilize this country to the barest minimum. So it's regrettable that elections are called up in this situation. But we must go for elections because, like you quoted Batoni Akeremona, the cure may also be in the elections. Because if all Cameroonians decide to say no, we'll say no to the person who has been the stumbling block to the progress of this nation for the last 3 to 4 decades. So the cure can also be in the elections. And I would like many Cameroonians to understand that once you have a problem, you don't dismiss any possible solution, especially our brothers and sisters of the Northwest and Southwest regions. Because if you say you want to secede because you had been talking to somebody and the person had been paying no attention to what you had been saying, and then now there's a possibility where you can change that person, have another person who can listen to you, I think we should all lend support for the election to take place so that we push away this person who has been the stumbling block to, and who has been the ill to all our to the country, and then we sit around as Cameroonians, like the SDF has always been proposing, a transition, because we have so many problems that we must sit around as a people to try to resolve. We are close to 60 years independent, but the form of state was handed to us by the colonial masters. It does not serve our interests, it serves their interests. So we must sit as a people to discuss and negotiate what form of state will be fine for us. In the 1990s, the SDF called this the National Conference. So we must come back to that, and this can only be done within a transition wherein all political views, the civil society will be consulted. We come down with a constitution that we will all respect, and then I think we'll start working for Cameroon.
And talking about these regions affected by the crisis, which seem to be the stronghold of the Social Democratic Front, is the party not worried about how the election is going to be affecting?
Yes, it is true. It is true that the stronghold may have crises which will affect the elections. But Cameroon is not made up of only 2 regions. And I think the average Cameroonian from the other 8 regions has had enough time to understand what is happening. And I think they are very, very sympathetic to what is happening to their fellow brothers and sisters of the Northwest and the Southwest regions. So these are the people who will vote for a clear future. We must not rely only on Anglophones. In the 1992, when Frunzi won, he was not voted by only Anglophones. So I think we are living in a country where if we call ourselves Cameroonians and want to live together, I don't think Francophones will pay a deaf ear to the sufferings of Anglophones.
Thank you so much, Barrister, for joining us tonight.
Thank you too, and thank you to our televiewers.
On Talking Point, maybe you have final words before we part.
Well, the final word is that I would have asked to register, but since we cannot register again, go collect your voters' cards and make sure you vote on the 7th of October.
Thank you
we'll be
so
coming
much.
Back with campaigns.
Thank you.
That
is the legal advisor of the Social Democratic Front. They're joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. Viewers, we thank you so much for joining us. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.